What up, Wizards? It's Dev. Got kind of a quick, fun one for you today. Bloomborough as my desktop background, so you know where my head is. But there is one thing we got to do before we start talking about the Burrow. An Assassin's Creed set came out. I don't even know if you're aware of this. Some people aren't. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter the last couple of days like, there's an Assassin's Creed set. As a matter of fact, there is. It's the Universes Beyond thing that they're putting out. And if you pay no attention to it, I kind of wouldn't blame you. But maybe you like Assassin's Creed. That's up to you. You just do whatever you want to do. I know some people who are excited about this, actual real life friends of mine included. But that said, even if you're not like a huge fan of the Assassin's Creed franchise, maybe you're going to skip this one, you don't care too much about it, or even if it for whatever reason puts you into a blinding rage, there are still going to be cards from this set that you might want to know about, either because you're probably going to see them across from you at a commander table, or even worse, an actual competitive table. I don't know, maybe, who knows? But aside from that, there's also the fact that some of these are just really cool, and I like cool Magic cards, and I know that you do too. Don't pretend you don't like cool Magic cards. So maybe you won't go out and buy the set, but maybe there's one or two cards that you could be interested in. I know it sounds nuts, but it's entirely possible. So today we're going to look at 11 cards from the Assassin's Creed set that I think are actually worth knowing about the existence of. Now, I kind of want to say this is in like no particular order because a lot of these cards are going to be of like a similar power level, but I know that Templar Knight is going to be my honorable mention. 2 mana, 1 and a white for a 3/1 human knight with vigilance. A deck can have any number of this guy. It's one of these things. But you can also pay a single white mana and tap 5 untapped attacking dudes you control named this guy to search your library for a legendary artifact, throw it right onto the table, and shuffle up, buddy. So people have already suggested some fun stuff with this, like a Chroma's Memorial. That'd be pretty good. Thrumming Stone, that's a funny one. I actually think a Chroma's Memorial might have some, that's okay. But mostly this dude is like a total meme. And I guess the reason I wanted to bring him up is that, like, white doesn't get a whole lot of creatures like this, or like ever, like Plague Rats, Persistent Petitioners, whatever. We've seen a few dudes like this over the course of the last, 30 years. At a rate of like 1 every 5 years, we get one of these things. And I'm not sure that any of them have ever been this color. So just cool to point out. And of all these guys throughout Magic history, this has one of the more interesting, like, breakable abilities, but I'm pretty sure it's still like really bad. I'm also pretty sure it's not going to be worth financially like filling out a deck with these because they're from a super limited print run set that literally no one will open. I don't know, like 12 dudes in the world will open this set, maybe a couple of ladies, So I'm not sure how much of this card is going to be circulated, to be quite honest. I think it might actually be kind of way too expensive to justify doing the meme. I guess we'll call Sinu number 10. It's one of these like top 10, not a top 10 list. It's one of these. I think we're getting famous for them. Sinu Keen Eye Protector is another white 2-drop. And this is like objectively cooler in my mind. 1 and a white for a 2/1 legendary bird scout with flying and vigilance. You can tap and exile Sinu to gain 2 life and scry 2. However, also, when a legendary creature you control attacks and is not blocked, if Sinu's exiled, put it on the battlefield attacking. Neat. It's pretty cool. And it's not going to be blocked either because we're already past the declare blockers step, So just a free extra 2 damage, a free extra 2 life, a free scry 2 later on, I guess. If it gets targeted by removal and it's not summoning sick, you could always, gain 2 scry 2. That's really cool. So I just like a lot of things about this dude. I think he probably fits pretty well into a number of like life gainy sort of commander decks and stuff. So he's also a relatively cheap historic permanent. That might matter for multiple reasons. Some of them in this set, and this set cares about historic stuff too. So I don't know, just all together, I really like the design of this, and I'm not sure that it's necessarily going anywhere, but it might go into like a ton of different, white commander decks. Number 9 is Yggdrasil Rebirth Engine. This is a 3 mana legendary artifact, and when it ETBs, you exile all the creatures from your graveyard. You can also tap it to exile the top 3 cards of your library. Buster. But you can also pay for and tap it to put a creature card exiled with Yggdrasil onto the battlefield under your control, have it gain haste until end of turn, and then activate this only as a Sork. So this is actually pretty decent if you think about the curve here, right? But you have to devote the first couple of the turns of the game to binning stuff into your yard. Then you have to play this on 3, thus skipping your 3rd turn. And then you have to devote your entire turn 4 to activating this card. So maybe it's not actually super great, but it's also, a artifact, like a colorless artifact any deck can play, especially in Commander. That might be decent. There might be reasons you want to exile the top 3 of your library. Like maybe for the fact those are like booty, butt cheek, like bad cards, and you just want to get rid of them and spend something else up. Who knows? I do think this is probably more meme than Dream, but it could put some labor in. It could. And number 8 is Ivor Battle Ready, an equipment commander in Boros. So how is that better than Yggdrasil? Have I completely lost my mind? You're probably yelling at me right now, and you probably should. But Ivor is 5 mana, 3, a red, and a white for a 5/5 legendary human assassin warrior with vigilance and haste. So 5 mana, 5/5 vigilance haste. Whenever it attacks, it deals damage equal to the number of equipment you control to each opponent. Okay, so I think this is just like immediately the best Boros equipments commander, and I know that like a new one comes out in every set, it feels like, and they're always kind of bad. But this one, even though it's 5 mana and sits there in your command zone and thus will surprise absolutely no one, you know, I do think that there's plenty of ways to engineer a situation where they just wins you the game, like very easily off of its attacks trigger. And you have to have ways to protect it outside of just like, you know, lava greaves and swiftfoot boots and stuff like that. Because the moment you go to equip those, they'll just blow it away. So you have to have a real way of protecting this. But once you do, even one attacks trigger is just enough to either win the game or just like severely kneecap most of the other players in the game, like life total wise, and just make you the bad guy immediately. So, you know, if they do kill it, then just cast it again. You know, just keep doing that. Or, you know, they have to blow up all your equipment in order to like really contain this. So again, it's kind of expensive, but it does have haste. So I do like that about it. Either way, I just think that this is a much better commander than it looks. And it's just kind of like the commander that Boros Equipment's been waiting on for like 15 years at this point. So I'm actually really excited to have this lady in town. My number 7 is Edward Kenway. And I think I might be like slightly more excited about Ivor. And I think Ivor might have like more effect on commander than a card like Eddie, but Edward Kenway is interesting. This is 5 mana, again, a 5 mana commander in this set. This is 2 and then Grixis colors, blue, black, red for a 5/5 legendary human assassin pirate. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each tapped assassin, pirate, and or vehicle you control. Whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, look at the top card of that player's library, exile it face down, and you can play it for as long as it remains exiled. It's not going to help you mana-wise. You know, it doesn't say you can use mana of any color, but it does give you treasure theoretically to help you cast those cards. And that's the ability I'm interested in right here. Now, kind of lamely, the things that generate the treasure have to be tapped, right? So assassins, pirates, vehicles, you all have to engineer a way to tap them, whether it's attacking or like some other probably better way of tapping your dudes down than that. But this dude could reliably create anywhere between like 3 and 7 treasure, you know? Which is pretty nuts. And then it happened again next turn. Just like the last thing, it has to, you know, kind of survive until the trigger, the turn it comes down to actually do anything. And it doesn't have any protective abilities like ward or anything like that. So you really have to know when to play this. It has to, you know, backed up with counter magic or something like that in this color combination to make it actually work. But again, like getting all that treasure, amazing. This could just be like the worst dockside extortionist ever, but it does get to like hang out in your command zone, which is pretty sweet. Either way, either Kenway, I do think this card is really, really cool and is one of the more like exciting brewable commanders. You know, sometimes you see a legendary creature like Sinu, you know, like 2 mana flyer that we looked at. It's like, that's a legendary guy and he's cool, but am I going to brew a commander deck around this? Absolutely not. You know, this, on the other hand, yeah, I'm kind of excited about doing that. Next at number 6, I guess, is the Crystal Skull Isu Spyglass. This is 4 mana, 2 and 2 blue for a legendary artifact. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play historic lands and cast historic spells from the top of your library. You can also tap this for a blue mana, like just because. It's a good magic card, I think, right there, especially in the context of Commander where you actually have the 4 mana and the deck built to take advantage of this. I imagine you're mostly just casting artifacts, you know, up the top of your library with this thing like 9 times out of 10. But I guess it gives you the deck building like breathing room to also include legendary stuff and sagas or whatever. So you're not just like locked into one permanent type or whatever. I do like that. More historic stuff is always kind of welcome. And I do think this is a cool card that is either too expensive or the best like mono blue card in the set that'll end up like a one of in every blue commander deck. But I don't know if it goes that far. I just do think that if you built your deck a specific way, that's almost a must play. Number 5 is probably not as good as Crystal Skull, but you know, it gets so many like points from me for so many reasons. First of all, it's Orzo. It's 2, a black and a white for bleeding effect. This is an enchantment, one of my favorite card types, period. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, Creatures you control gain flying until end of turn if a creature card in your graveyard has flying. The same is true for first strike, double strike, death touch, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance. So most relevant and popular keyword abilities. If a dude in your graveyard has that ability, all of your creatures gain that ability till end of turn. This is nuts. Like, all of your dudes are Cairn Wanderers, which is like one of my favorite creatures of all time, low key, especially that like weird little guy Lorwyn art. Like, the original Cairn Wanderer art from Lorwyn he's just the weirdest little guy. He's walking around naked for no reason. But I love Cairn Wanderer so much. Like, literally one of my favorite cards ever in Magic. And we get an Orzo enchantment that allows all of our dudes to be Cairn Wanderers. So I'm going to point that out. This card's awesome. Next at 4, I'm pretty sure it's number 4. Yeah, that's its casting cost too, is Apple of Eden Isu Relic. This is a 4-mana legendary artifact. Oh no, last time we saw one of those, it took over Modern. You can tap it and pay 4 life and sacrifice it to look at target opponent's hand and exile those cards face down. You may play those cards this turn, and mana of any type can be spent to cast those spells. Until end of turn, whenever you play a land or cast a spell this way, its owner draws a card. At the beginning of the next end step, return the exiled cards to their owner's hand. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay, so the activate only as a sorcery does take some of the wind out of it there at the end, because you think you might be able to like pseudo Mindslaver the opponent, but you're not really even doing that. Also, this is just take your opponent's hand from them until end of turn, but obviously they can respond to you sacrificing this by playing some of the cards in their hand. When you let them like draw cards by playing some of their spells, then they get to play the cards they drew like that same turn. Again, this is not like Mindslaver. I keep seeing people call it that, but no, they still have full control of their hand. You know, like as soon as you play one of the spells from the cards that are exiled, they get to draw a card and thus get to start playing Magic. And I'm not a huge fan of what's going on here in terms of like what will actually happen if you try to resolve this card. But in terms of design, again, just massive fan. So I have 2 wolves inside of me is what I'm saying. Next at number 3 is Shay Cormac. And yeah, it's Orzhov. You know, an Orzhov card's always going to go a long way with me. But this is one that I'm actually like really excited about in terms of like what potential ramifications it could have for Commander as a format. This is just 2 mana. It's white and a black for a 1/1 legendary human knight rogue. You can pay 1 and have permanents you control lose hexproof, indestructible, protection, shroud, and ward until end of turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes the target of a spell or ability you control, put a bounty counter on that creature. Whenever a creature with a bounty counter on it dies, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Shay Cormac. Awesome thing about this is this ridiculous first line of text. You know, you don't have to sacrifice it or anything. Just pay a mana, and you can ignore all of the most, you know, aggravating, irritating, annoying keywords in the entire game. You know, especially like nowadays, ward. You know, everybody's fussing about Voha over on the twitter.com, and it's too good for Commander, but well, now you just pay 1 mana and you shut down that ward, and not just on Voha, but on plenty of other stuff. And obviously Hexproof and Indestructible are very irritating abilities too, so just having the ability to shut that down for a mana is incredible. And this dude's going to grow a lot bigger, you know, a lot faster than you think. So I think he's cool, dude. I hope I'm not just like blinded by Orzhov here, but I'm pretty sure this is actually a very good and in some ways pretty impactful card. My number 2 is Sergo Entertainment, which is apparently a land. And entertainment is a land for some reason. It's a legendary land, and you can pay 1 and tap it for a mana of any color. Or you can just tap it for a colorless, if you'd rather. No fuss, no muss. The important thing here, though, is that you can pay 3 and tap it and exile it to return up to 1 target historic card from your yard to your hand, and then exile all graveyards. So, pretty good. Like, return an artifact to your hand, return a legendary from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah, Saga too, I guess. But honestly, artifact and legendary, return one of those to your hand, and then exile all yard. That could be good in and of itself right there, you know? Just mess around with what other people are doing. So, you have a land that actually does 2 things here. You know, it Bojuka Bogs everyone. It just like exile. Is that right? It exiles all the graveyards, which is, again, that's one thing that it does that's kind of good enough on a colorless land that any deck can play and, you know, probably make good use of. But obviously the real attraction here is get back the most important artifact in your deck that you only have 1 copy of. Get back the most important legendary in your deck that's not your commander you only have 1 copy of. So This is actually probably the real best card in the entire set, but I have kind of a cheeky number one here that I'm really excited about. Now, to know what my number one is, I have to explain what free running is. Now, my number one is not restart sequence, which might surprise some people. I think you might think my number one is restart sequence, but no. Free running is an ability that says you may cast this spell for its free running cost if you dealt damage to a player this turn with an assassin or a commander. So you don't have to have like an assassin's deck. Just in commander, if you dealt damage with your commander this turn, you can play this for its free running cost. In this case, you get a 2-mana reanimation spell, which is really, really good. Obviously, this is probably my second favorite and might even be like the most busted of all of them, especially in a straight up assassin's deck where this card is like very easy to cast. And you got your roaming thrones and your changelings and stuff like that. Again, free running gets incredible in those situations. And I want to point that out. Restart sequence is good, but it's not my favorite of these. Now that goes to Eagle Vision. This would normally cost 5 mana to draw 3 at sorcery speed, but instead you can free run it for 2 mana. Where can I free base it? Like, put that directly into my veins, dude. 2 mana to draw 3 cards, and all I got to do is get in with my commander or something. And yeah, again, assassins can get in, changelings can get in, roaming throne counts, and like all this stuff, and that matters. But also importantly, very importantly, getting in with your commander, draw 3 for 2 mana, I think that's actually phenomenal, dude. That's the phenomenal AJ Styles right there. So I just really like this card. Again, we go back to Lorwyn as well in a few sets time, and there should be even more changelings on Lorwyn. So, you know, just remember that when it comes to anything with free running. But honestly, just like blue commander decks, especially blue commander decks, because often, you know, they'll have ways of making their commanders unblockable, or their commanders will have like a baked in unblockable ability of some kind or whatever. And suddenly 2 mana draw 3 is just unbeatable. You know, that's a very, very good rate. So I really like Eagle Vision a lot, and I think that it might actually have some real chances. I know that it's not going to see, like, you know, competitive play anytime soon or anything like that in any format. Not that, I mean, knock on wood, right? Who knows? But I will say that as far as Commander is concerned, I think this is one of, subtly, the most important new cards in the set pretty easily. But that's it, everybody. Let's go ahead and close some folders here so you can see this awesome Bloomborough art. Aren't you excited for Bloomborough? Some sort of crazy nightmare owl that's like pooping out. It's not pooping out. It's got like moons and stars and stuff in its tail. That's so cool. But that's going to be a great set. But in the meantime, again, let me know how you felt about Assassin's Creed. Do you think that you're mad at that product? Are you mad at that product? I don't know. Let me know. Vent your frustrations down there in the comments section. You got to have somewhere to scream into the void. Why not do it here? You can also just tell me if you like this set, if you like any of these cards, any cards I didn't bring up that you're excited to talk about. Mention those in the comments section. You know, we got one video to talk about the Assassin's Creed set. Let's use it wisely. You know, let's actually do it, right? Let's not pass up that opportunity. But anyway, that is all I've got for now. Just do all the YouTube stuff on your way out. Like the video, subscribe to the sandwich. You can check out the Patreon, link in the description. Check out the Twitch. We stream on Thursdays, link in the description. And you can also do anything else there's available. There's probably a video down there. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, just let me know how you felt about the goings on here, and I'll catch you cats later. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.